So the number one thing people should know about looking after the heart is physical exercise is very important. So the current recommendations is people should do 150 minutes a week of moderately vigorous physical activity. Now the definition of that is open to interpretation, but the take-home message, I suppose, is you should always try and keep physically active as much as you can, build it into your normal week, and make sure that you look after your weight, which is very important. Nowadays, there is a huge problem with obesity, and it leads to a lot of different health problems, not just cardiovascular problems, but lots of general health problems as well. So I always tell patients that they need to keep active, always exercise, and look after the weight. So early warning signs that people should not ignore is chest pain that either comes on at exertion, and disappears at rest. That's normally a sign of angina. That's essentially the definition of angina, and it may be related to underlying coronary artery disease. And even more worryingly, if you get chest pain that does not disappear at rest or comes on at rest and makes you feel very unwell, that's a sign that you need to seek emergency medical assistance. Now, pain is a slightly unusual word because most of the patients I see say, oh, it's not pain, it's a discomfort. And I think those terms should be used interchangeably. If you have a discomfort in your chest, which comes on whilst you are exerting yourself, disappears at rest, then that is often a sign of angina. And you should seek medical opinion on that. Yeah, myths about heart health. I think one of the most common myths, I get asked this quite a lot actually, whether taking over-the-counter supplements like fish oils and things like that are beneficial. When I was a trainee, which wasn't too long ago, it used to be the thing that people used to get prescribed fish oils on the ward. And now with more research, we understand that the benefit is very minimal, if any. You have to take quite a lot of it for it to have any effect on your heart health. So I normally advise people not to take any over-the-counter supplements without seeing a doctor, because you don't really understand whether it's worth your time taking those extra supplements. And it's probably better to get assessed properly by your GP or cardiologist and get more specific advice. Which of these things can have the biggest impact on your cardiovascular health? Diet, stress, and exercise. I think all of them. You need to eat well, you need to exercise regularly. That's almost a given, really. Everybody should try and do that as much as they can. We all lead busy lives, we all have competing commitments, and I understand that. Stress levels have been shown to increase your risk of adverse events. So people who are more stressed are more likely to have higher blood pressure, which is linked to risk of stroke, risk of heart attacks, etc. So you should try and reduce your stress levels as much as you can, really. So all these three things are important. The habits that I always advise patients to try and do, which is very easy, is you need to sleep well. So regular bedtime, enough sleep. Most people need 6 to 8 hours of sleep. You probably need less as you get older, but not having enough sleep increases your stress levels, make you tired, and there's this concept of sleep debt. So if you say, for example, need 8 hours a day, but on Monday you only have 5, you owe your body 3 hours. And at some point during that week, you will have to pay that back. Whether you realize it or not, you will feel a little bit sleepy or tired, and you will end up having a nap at some point to catch up. So your body always demands from you that sleep that it needs. We are bad at spending too much time on devices and phones, not just children but adults as well, which makes you sleep late, and then you have to wake up early, so you're always slightly behind on sleep. Sleep is very important and something that people don't take seriously. I think everybody should know what their blood pressure is and the cholesterol. That's probably the bare minimum. The thing that we need to understand is those two things, for example, are only some of your risk factors. It doesn't tell you the whole picture, and it needs to be interpreted with context, which is why consultation with a physician or cardiologist is useful to help you understand what your risks are, estimation of risks of long-term cardiovascular events. And then if the risk is above a certain threshold, then we can talk about how we can alter that with medications or interventions, lifestyle interventions, etc. There is a sweet spot in terms of not giving people too many medications and not giving them any. You know, there's a sweet spot, and that needs to be done by a physician normally, and that's what I tend to do at Clinic M. I have a discussion with patients, speak to them about all their data, so that we have a good understanding together about where we are and what is going to be beneficial and what's going to be less beneficial. To a certain extent, that is probably true, because age is probably the strongest predictor of risk, regardless of everything else. You can't do anything about age. Everybody gets older, and as you get older, your risk of diseases increases, and that's just a natural history of things. But in terms of things that you can modify and you can influence, I always tell young people they shouldn't smoke. That's a very easy thing to do. Vaping is another thing that is a big deal currently. We don't quite understand what vaping does in the longer term, but there has been some research, some papers published that have demonstrated that vaping is actually not that much better than smoking. It's probably marginally better than smoking, but it still damages the lining of your arteries in a different way to cigarettes, but it's not without its harm. So I try and tell young people, if you don't do anything else, try and avoid smoking and vaping if you can. Right, let me think. What do? I try and exercise. So me personally, I try and exercise as much as I can. I have quite a busy life, so it can be quite challenging, and I understand that when I speak to patients. But as much as possible, I try and exercise 2 or 3 times a week. The current recommendations is that on top of cardiovascular exercise, so cardio, it is now also recommended to do some weight training a couple of days a week to reduce frailty as you get older. It's probably less relevant in younger patients, but as you get older, you lose strength and you lose bone density. So physical training in terms of weight training is important. We're not talking about really heavy weights here. We're talking about some degree of resistance training, which is good to keep your strength and prevent falls and things like that. I tend to eat quite well. I tend to we tend to make our own food. And then you've got to live life as well. You need to be practical. You go and have takeaways and things like that. But as much as possible, eat very healthily. And intermittent fasting is actually quite good. We have done that before in our family, and fasting is actually very beneficial for you, and it helps maintain weight and maintain your kind of insulin levels. You should only worry about the things that you can control. People have this illusion that they are in control, but we are really not. We are only in control of the things that we can control. The outcome of most things that we do is beyond our control most of the time. So we shouldn't really worry about that, and we should only just accept that that's just part of life, unfortunately or fortunately. take the rough with the smooth, and just worry about what you can do. Don't worry too much about the outcome of things. That's my usual advice to patients.